Malik stood in the small kitchen of his apartment, double-checking his backpack. The zipper was stubborn, but he yanked it shut anyway. Chalk, gloves, first aid kit, water. He had everything. He should have been home, eating leftover pizza and watching YouTube. But instead, he was suiting up for another one of Zoe's wild ideas. His phone buzzed for the third time in 5 minutes. Zoe, hurry up. Don't be lame, Malik. This is content gold. He looked at Tina, his roommate and climbing partner, who sat cross-legged on the couch. She was already dressed in black leggings and a faded hoodie. Her hair was up in a messy bun, face serious. You sure about this? Tina asked, eyebrow raised. Malik shrugged. We're already in the group chat. Too late to bail. Tina sighed. You realize the cops patrol that quarry at night, right? Plus, climbing at midnight with Zoe and her crazy ex. Sounds like a reality show that gets cancelled after one episode. He smirked. Yeah, but at least it won't be boring. Minutes later, they were outside. The air was cool, the kind that wakes you up and makes your skin tingle. Zoe's car pulled up fast, music thumping. She rolled down the window, all teeth and energy. You two ready for TikTok history? In the passenger seat was Vic, Zoe's ex. He was a tall, wiry guy with an army haircut and eyes that never smiled. Even at a glance, Malik felt a chill. Zoe jumped out, hugging Tina and snapping a quick selfie. We're about to do something epic. Nobody's ever climbed the Devil's Edge at night. Vic stayed quiet, just giving Malik a nod that felt more like a warning. The four of them walked together towards the old quarry. The rusted chain-link fence bent just enough for a body to slip through. Zoe filmed it all, narrating like it was a travel show. Here we are, folks, breaking the rules for the best view in town. Tina muttered, we're going to end up on the news, or missing. But they climbed through anyway, boots crunching on gravel. The cliffs rose ahead of them, black and jagged against the night sky. Malik looked up and swallowed hard. The ledge didn't look nearly as wide as he remembered. He kept moving. The night was only getting started. The sky was heavy with clouds, letting just enough moonlight spill through to make the rocks glisten. Every sound felt sharper out here. Crickets, the wind, the distant hum of traffic, all mixed with the low static from Zoe's camera. They crouched behind a big boulder, while Zoe did her intro for the camera, voice full of fake bravado. All right, everyone, we're at Devil's Edge. This is where legends are made and people either chicken out or go viral. Tina rolled her eyes and whispered to Malik, remind me why we agreed to this. Malik grinned, but his hands were sweaty. You know you're here for the same reason I am. We don't like telling Zoe no. Vic was busy tying his boots tighter. Jaw clenched so hard the muscles popped in his cheeks. He checked his harness and kept glancing at Zoe like he was watching her for some secret sign. The base of the cliff was rough, the rocks cold and slick to the touch. Malik felt a pulse of adrenaline. Zoe was first to start climbing, laughing and talking to the camera as she went. This is easier than it looks. Come on, slowpokes. Vic followed close behind, staying just a little too close for comfort. Tina went third, cursing under her breath every time her foot slipped. Malik brought up the rear, taking his time, checking every handhold before trusting it with his weight. 50 feet up, the ledge they were aiming for jutted out from the cliff like a broken bone. Up close, it looked even skinnier than it had from the ground. Zoe reached it first, swinging herself up and waving her arms like she'd won a prize. Told you, I could do this with my eyes closed. Vic reached her seconds later, but instead of celebrating, he just stared out into the darkness, not saying a word. Malik helped Tina up, and the two of them huddled at the far end of the ledge. There was barely enough room for the four of them to stand shoulder to shoulder. Below them, it was just empty blackness. If you slipped, you'd fall until the rocks or trees stopped you, if they stopped you at all. A sudden wind gust made Zoe wobble. She laughed, but Malik saw the nerves in her eyes. "Don't look down," Tina muttered, gripping the rock so hard her knuckles turned white. Zoe, of course, peeked. "Oh, damn. Yeah, don't look down." Vic was fiddling with something in his pocket. Malik caught the glint of a small folding knife, but didn't say anything. The night felt colder. Malik shivered, not sure if it was from the wind or something else. They weren't even halfway done, and he already wanted to be back on solid ground. Malik tried to get his breathing under control. The ledge was so narrow that every time someone shifted their weight, the whole thing seemed to tremble. Zoe was still holding her phone out, trying to get a signal. She leaned out a little too far, and Malik's stomach dropped. "Careful," he said quietly. She flashed a grin at him. "Relax, Malik. If I fall, at least I'll be famous." Malik didn't laugh. Tina didn't either. Vic crouched down, his back to the rock, eyes moving between Zoe and the dark woods below. He suddenly stiffened, head snapping up. "Did you hear that?" Vic's voice was sharp, way too loud for comfort. They all went quiet. For a second, there was nothing, just wind and distant cars. Then, from the shadows below, a branch cracked. Something was moving. Malik's heart hammered in his chest. "Probably a raccoon or something," Tina said, trying to sound calm. Vic's hand drifted to his pocket. "Yeah, or maybe some creep following us." Zoe, sensing the tension, turned her camera back on herself. "We're getting spooked, guys. Devil's Edge, baby. Who knows what's out here, right?" She tried to laugh it off, but Malik saw her hand shaking. Suddenly, Zoe's phone slipped. It hit the rock, bounced once, and went spinning off the ledge. They listened to it crash, tumbling down until the sound vanished. Zoe's eyes went wide. "No, no, no, that was my new phone." Tina put a hand on her shoulder. "Forget it. We just need to focus on getting across." Vic stood up, scowling at the drop. "Nobody's going back for it. Let's move." Malik looked at the path ahead. The ledge got even thinner, curving around a jagged outcrop. One at a time, maybe, if they moved slowly. The wind howled, spraying bits of dust and grit into their faces. Malik could see Tina's nerves. He felt it too, a slow crawl of dread in his chest, growing stronger every minute. They edged forward. Zoe went first, hugging the wall and breathing hard. Vic stayed close, too close, making her flinch. Malik watched his every move, something about Vic's eyes setting off alarms in his head. "Don't look down," Tina whispered again, but her voice was barely more than a squeak. Behind them, the woods were silent, but Malik felt eyes on them. Maybe it was just nerves. Maybe it was something else. They pressed on, step by careful step, moving deeper into the night and farther from safety. The ledge narrowed again until it was barely wide enough for a single shoe. Zoe stopped and pressed herself flat against the wall, breath coming fast and shaky. Vic nudged her shoulder. "Keep going. If you freeze up, we're all screwed." Zoe glared at him, but didn't argue. She slid her foot forward, slow and careful. Malik waited until she was a few steps ahead before moving. His hands gripped the stone so tight he felt the grit dig into his palms. Behind him, Tina muttered prayers under her breath. A cold gust of wind whipped through, and Zoe almost lost her balance. She gasped and slammed both hands against the rock, legs trembling. Malik called out, "Don't rush, Zoe. Just go steady." She nodded, teeth clenched. Vic climbed ahead of her and turned to face the group, blocking the path forward. "Why'd we bring all this gear if we're not going to use it?" Vic asked, voice cold. "We could have roped up and made this easy. But no, gotta do it Zoe's way. For the camera." Zoe shot him a glare, but she was too scared to talk back. Tina was next. She reached a patch where the rock jutted out, forcing her to sidestep. Suddenly, her shoe slipped. The sole scraped across the ledge, sending a shower of pebbles tumbling into the dark. Tina froze. For a second, it looked like she'd go over. Malik lunged, grabbing her arm just in time. She clung to him, shaking. "I'm good," she whispered. "I'm good. Just slipped." Vic rolled his eyes. "One at a time. Stop crowding." They kept moving. There was no turning back now. The ledge behind them was almost invisible, lost in darkness. No one wanted to look back anyway. Malik caught sight of something strange, a length of old rope hanging from a rusty bolt hammered deep into the rock. He ran his fingers over it. The rope was shredded, barely hanging on. "Somebody's climbed here before," he said. Zoe swallowed hard. "Bet they didn't come at night." Vic snorted. "Bet they weren't idiots either." No one laughed. Up ahead, the path twisted and rose again. The only way was forward. The group inched along the stone, hearts pounding, every sense on high alert. The wind picked up, whistling through cracks in the rock, and somewhere far below, water crashed against hidden stones. Malik's mind kept racing. No cell signal, no easy way down, no way out except across that ledge. He forced himself to keep moving. His only choice was to go on. They kept moving, one slow step at a time. Malik's shoulders burned from tension. Every time the wind gusted, he could feel the ledge shudder under their weight. Vic reached a jagged section first. He stopped, squatting low, peering around the corner. He glanced back at the others, face tight. Zoe was right behind him, knees shaking, but still pushing forward. As she went to step around Vic, his elbow shot out. It was fast, almost like an accident. His arm smacked Zoe hard in the chest. She slipped, her hand sliding off the rock. Her scream echoed off the cliff, sharp and panicked. Malik reached for her, grabbing her jacket at the last second. He pulled her back to the ledge, heart pounding. Zoe's breathing was ragged. Tears blurred her eyes. "What the hell, Vic?" Vic shrugged, voice flat. "You weren't watching where you were going." Tina's face twisted in anger. "You did that on purpose." Vic didn't respond, just stared down at the dark woods below. Malik checked Zoe over. "You okay?" She nodded shakily, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Tina shot Vic a death glare, but kept quiet. They moved on. Malik's trust in Vic was gone. Every step, he watched the guy out of the corner of his eye. The next part of the ledge narrowed even more. They had to go single file. Zoe took the lead, more careful now, hugging the wall and moving slow. Vic was right behind her, still way too close. Tina went next, then Malik. As Tina reached the ledge, she suddenly stopped, staring at her harness. "Wait, what the?" Tina's voice was sharp. She held up her harness strap. It had been cut, clean, straight through. She looked at Malik, panic in her eyes. "My harness is sliced." Zoe spun around. "How?" Vic shrugged again. "Must have snagged on a sharp rock. Nobody bought it." Malik's skin crawled. This wasn't an accident. Somebody, Vic, wanted to scare them, or worse. A heavy silence fell. Even Zoe didn't have a comeback. The ledge seemed to shrink around them. They had no choice but to keep going, every step now loaded with fear. Malik realized something. This wasn't just a risky climb. It was turning into a nightmare. By the time they reached a wider spot on the ledge, everyone was breathing hard, not from the climb, but from nerves. There was just enough room for them to sit and catch their breath, knees tucked up and backs pressed against the cold rock. Zoe pulled her beanie off and ran shaking fingers through her hair. Her eyes were fixed on Tina's harness, the sly strap swinging loose. Tina held it up for everyone to see. "Look at this. This wasn't from a rock. It's a clean cut." No one said a word. Vic pretended not to notice, unscrewing a dented metal flask and taking a long drink. He wiped his mouth and stared at Malik, almost daring him to say something. Malik kept his voice steady. "We need to stay sharp. No more accidents." Zoe tried to lighten the mood, but her voice was thin. "Guess this is where I admit I hate heights." Vic snorted. "A little late for that, don't you think?" Malik ignored him. He checked his phone. Still no signal. Just a blinking red bar. He shoved it back into his pocket. A sudden crash behind them made everyone jump. Rocks tumbled down from above, slamming onto the ledge they'd just crossed. The way back was blocked by a pile of jagged stones, dust swirling in the cold air. Zoe scrambled up, panic in her voice. "Did you see that? We're trapped." Tina's hand shook as she pointed at the pile. That wasn't a random fall. Someone knocked those rocks loose. Vic stood up slowly, blocking the only way forward. His silhouette looked huge in the half-light, knife glinting in his hand. "Let's play a game," he said, voice low and cold. Nobody moved. Vic flicked the knife open and pointed it at them. "We're going to find out who's got what it takes to survive." Zoe's eyes went wide. Tina pressed herself back against the rock. Malik felt the dread in his gut turn to cold anger. He looked Vic dead in the eye. "You need to back off, Vic." Vic just grinned. "Make me." A standoff high above the ground, nowhere to run. The night was silent except for the sound of the wind whistling through the cracks. Malik realized it wasn't just the climb they had to survive now. It was each other. Nobody dared move. Malik kept his eyes on the knife in Vic's hand, trying to keep his breathing calm. Zoe and Tina looked frozen, pressed against the rock like they could disappear if they stayed still enough. The pile of rocks that blocked their way back wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a message. They were stuck. The only way out was forward, and Vic was guarding that path. Zoe tried to reason with him, her voice trembling. "Come on, Vic. Let's just go. Nobody wants trouble." Vic sneered. "That's the thing. Sometimes trouble finds you." He flicked the knife back and forth, the silver blade catching bits of moonlight. "You think you're better than me? All of you. Always looking down your noses." His voice started to shake, just a little. "Well, let's see who lasts out here." Malik tried to shift his weight without drawing attention, but Vic's eyes snapped to him. "You got a problem, Malik? You want to be the hero?" Malik met his glare. "No one's trying to be a hero. We just want to get down in one piece." Vic grinned, slow and mean. "We'll see." Suddenly, he lunged at Tina, slashing the knife down, not hard enough to kill, but enough to cut. Tina screamed, blood blooming on her thigh. Malik rushed forward, but Vic spun and pressed the blade to Malik's chest. "Back up, unless you want to see what's inside your ribs." Malik froze. Zoe started sobbing, hands over her mouth. Vic laughed. "This is how it goes, huh? You all thought this was a game." Malik tried to keep his voice steady. "You're not thinking straight, Vic. Put the knife down." Vic just shook his head. No, now you're gonna do what I say, or nobody's leaving here. For the next hour, it was hell. Vic kept them huddled on the ledge, waving the knife, daring anyone to make a move. Tina's leg kept bleeding, and Zoe was too scared to even whisper. Malik tried to keep calm, eyes searching for any way out, any weakness, any chance. The wind howled. The cold set in. Malik's mind raced. If he didn't figure something out soon, none of them would make it back alive. Time crawled by, every minute feeling like an hour. Tina pressed a shirt to her bleeding thigh, her face pale and lips tight with pain. Zoe sat beside her, hugging her knees, trying not to cry too loud. Malik sat closest to the edge, eyes never leaving Vic. Vic paced the short length of the ledge, waving his knife, muttering to himself. Sometimes he glared at Malik, sometimes at Zoe, his face twisting with anger one moment and empty the next. The cold bit deeper as the night dragged on. Malik's fingers went numb. His mind worked over every possible move, but the odds sucked. He had to do something, but rushing Vic would get them all killed. A plan came together, slow and desperate. Malik needed a distraction, something to shift Vic's focus, even for a second. He reached into his bag, pretending to look for bandages. He found a carabiner and some climbing chalk. He looked at Tina and mouthed, "Be ready." She nodded, her face set with determination. Malik spoke up, trying to keep his voice steady. "Vic, you need to let Tina clean her leg. She'll bleed out otherwise. What's the point in that?" Vic scowled, considering it. "Fine, but you move funny. I cut you." Malik nodded. He handed the chalk to Tina, who pressed it against her wound, trying to slow the bleeding. As Vic leaned in to watch, Malik quietly unclipped the carabiner from his pack and palmed it, waiting for his moment. Zoe stared at the rocks below, barely breathing. "Why are you doing this, Vic? We're not your enemies." Vic laughed, but it was hollow. "No, you think I don't know how you all talk about me? How Zoe left me behind, how nobody gave a damn." He pointed the knife at Malik. "Especially you, always acting like you're better." Malik stared back. "You want someone to blame? Fine, blame me. Just let the girls go." Vic lunged forward, knife raised. Malik threw the carabiner at Vic's face, fast as he could. It hit Vic's forehead, making him stumble back with a yell. Malik tackled him, grabbing Vic's wrist with both hands. They wrestled for the knife, boots scraping on the thin ledge. The blade cut Malik's forearm, hot pain shooting up his arm, but he held on. Tina grabbed Zoe and pulled her toward the far end of the ledge. Malik headbutted Vic, dazing him. The knife dropped, skittering toward the edge. Zoe kicked it, sending it flying into the darkness below. Breathing hard, Malik shoved Vic away, both of them teetering on the brink. For a second, it looked like Vic might fall, but he caught himself, scrambling back against the wall, wild-eyed and breathing hard. No one spoke. The fight wasn't over, but they'd finally evened the odds. For a few seconds, no one moved. Vic glared at them, breathing hard, eyes darting from Malik to the girls and back again. Blood trickled down his forehead from the carabiner's hit, making him look even more unhinged. Tina pressed her shirt harder against her thigh, biting her lip to keep from crying out. Zoe hovered protectively, her own face streaked with tears and sweat. Malik's arm throbbed from where the knife cut him, but he ignored the pain. He kept his body between Vic and the others, not sure what the man would do next. Then, suddenly, thunder rumbled overhead. The first drops of rain splattered against the rocks, quickly turning everything slick and dangerous. Vic staggered to his feet, half slipping, eyes full of rage and desperation. You think you can just, what? Take me out and walk away? You think this is over? Zoe shook her head, voice small but clear. It's over, Vic. Let us go. Nobody has to die tonight. Vic just laughed, a high, broken sound. Someone always does. He lunged for Malik again, wild and sloppy. Malik dodged, grabbing Vic's jacket and twisting. The two of them struggled on the narrow ledge, boots slipping on the wet stone. Lightning flashed, blinding for a second. Malik saw his chance. He shoved Vic away, hard. Vic's foot skidded. He teetered, arms windmilling, grabbing for anything. There was nothing but empty air behind him. He grabbed Malik's wrist at the last second, nearly pulling Malik over too. Malik's feet scraped for grip, the world spinning below. Tina and Zoe rushed over, grabbing Malik's arms, yelling for him to hold on. Vic looked up at Malik, panic and hate in his eyes. Don't let me fall. Malik's mind raced. All he had to do was let go. He remembered every threat, every slash of the knife, the fear in Tina and Zoe's faces. But he couldn't just drop someone, not even Vic. Malik tightened his grip, trying to pull Vic up. Vic, still wild, tried to yank Malik down with him. Tina kicked at Vic's hand, shouting. Zoe screamed. Malik wrenched his arm free, and Vic's fingers slipped. Vic fell. It was quick. A scream cut off by the rocks below, then silence. Rain hammered down. For a moment, nobody spoke, all of them breathing in shock. Malik collapsed back on the ledge, soaked and shaking. Tina and Zoe hugged him, all three trembling with relief and fear. Down below, the storm raged, covering up whatever sound Vic made when he hit the ground. No one said Vic's name again. The storm kept pounding, turning the stone ledge into a river of mud and water. Malik's muscles shook, partly from exhaustion, partly from the cold, but mostly from everything that had just happened. He looked at Tina's bleeding thigh. The blood was slowing, but her skin was ghost white. Zoe tore off the bottom of her shirt and tied it around Tina's leg, trying to stop the bleeding. Malik hugged them both for a moment, just to feel someone real and alive. "Can you move?" he asked Tina. She nodded. "Not fast, but I can." Malik scanned the cliff face. The main way back was blocked by the rock slide, and there was no way he'd risk the same ledge again. But on the far side, he spotted a narrow crack in the rock, a chute barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. It dropped down at an angle, maybe all the way to the ground. Malik took the lead, testing every step before trusting his weight. Zoe helped Tina, steadying her whenever she slipped. The rain made everything twice as hard. Each movement sent more rocks tumbling into the darkness below. They crawled and scrambled, sometimes sliding on their backs, sometimes dropping to their knees to avoid a fall. The crack grew wider as they went, until Malik could finally see patches of weeds and broken glass below. When they tumbled out at the bottom, they were covered in mud and bruises, but all three were alive. The air down here felt heavy, full of pine and rain and distant sirens. Zoe pulled out her backup phone, battered, but working just enough to send out a GPS signal. Within the hour, flashing red and blue lights cut through the darkness. Paramedics wrapped Tina's leg and gave her a warm blanket. Zoe sobbed into Malik's shoulder, shaking with relief. Malik just sat there, staring at his bloody hands, unable to stop replaying every second in his mind. As the sun started to rise, they were led away from the quarry, leaving behind the ledge, the storm, and everything that happened up there. None of them would ever forget it. People always think scary stories can't happen to them, that they're just for movies or some stranger's channel. But sometimes it's your friends. Sometimes it's you. And if you're ever standing on the edge, ask yourself who's standing with you and what they might do if nobody else is watching.